Welcome to the Fierce Life Podcast, powered by Fierce Firearms, home of the lightest, most deadly accurate rifles ever.
Well, welcome, Fierce Nation. Here we are in Redmond, Utah at Fierce headquarters for podcast number 2. Joining me today, we've got Ammon Tinney. Ammon is what we call here our ballistic expert. He is our manager back in the gun shop on overseeing gun builds, and also has some extensive background in reloading ballistics, and he does some competition PRS shooting. So, Ammon, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
And then we have Courtney Crane, a.k.a. Corn Dog. I'll tell you the story of Corn Dog. He's here in sales with us at Fierce, and me and Courtney have known each other for a long time. We used to be together. He worked for sales for me over at Christensen Arms.
Yep, sure did.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
And we dubbed him Corn Dog back then because Courtney's been single for most of his life until just a year ago, 2 years ago. Almost 2 years now, and. Single guy, used to come in the mornings looking pretty rough, and he always would just pop in the microwave first thing in the morning, 2 corn dogs.
2 corn dogs. Hey, I had to have my breakfast. I'm a breakfast kind of guy. So.
And quickly he was dubbed the Corn Dog. And so people ask quite often where you got that name, so that's where it came from. But anyhow, glad to have you guys here. This week's, as we get evolving in this podcast and get more familiar and get our feet wet here, we're going to dive into specifics like calibers and different things. Podcast number 3, we're going to have Jason Hornady from Hornady Company, talking with us about the hottest calibers out right now, which by far from what we've seen is the 300 PRC and the 6.5 PRC. Is that what you're seeing out of the sales side, Courtney?
For sure. I mean, that 6.5 PRC is coming on strong, and now that 300 PRC has got a head of steam behind it as well, so it's good. They're
gobbling up most of our sales, which is fantastic. We always love when there's new calibers out. New excitement helps us sell rifles and all the goodies. So we'll have those on podcast number 3. He'll be joining us, so that'll be fantastic. But today I just kind of wanted to talk about, I've been in the business since 1997. Ammon, you're younger. How long would you say you've been shooting and I wouldn't say in the business, but how long have you been an enthusiast?
Well, honestly, as far back as I can remember, I got my very first little 22 rifle when I was 4 years old. My dad got me a Chipmunk little 22 long rifle, and I still remember sitting in his lap and shooting that little 22 as my beginnings into shooting. Ever since then, I just fascinated by being able to place a chunk of copper and lead and have it hit right where you want it to at extended ranges. So I'd say at least 15 years.
So you're still shooting the Chipmunk, or how has that evolved for you?
No, we've upgraded a little from that.
Good deal, yeah. And I think that old Chipmunk's still around today.
Yep.
That's a heck of a starter gun. So what would you say, 15, 20 years? How old are you, Ammon?
Yeah, I'm 29 right now.
Oh, so. Young buck. Holy cow.
Yep.
So quite a long time.
Yep.
And I know Ammon. Now that the weather is getting warm here at Fierce, we have a beautiful long-range facility right out our back door here at the building. And when I come to work early, it always kind of scares me because I'll hear a gunshot at 7:30 in the morning, and then reminds me. I look over and see Ammon's truck and realize he's out there practicing his cold bore shots.
Yep, it's important.
So this guy is he shoots a lot. He lives it, breathes it, and knows all about it. So we're glad to have him. Courtney, what about you? How about your background?
Gosh, I've always grew up hunting and stuff like that, but I think my first recollection was a BB gun too. 8 years old. Got it for my birthday, and I remember the first bird I shot out of a tree. But since then I kind of got into duck and goose hunting. But I'd say back when I started working with you, it was at Christensen is where I really started to get into
How long ago was that?
2009.
2009.
Yep.
So you've been 11 years deep.
Yep.
So you guys will both, since you've been in the industry, and you've been working in the industry for how long?
Let's see.
6-7 years?
Yeah, coming up on 6-7.
So you guys have seen a little bit of the evolution. I'm the old guy here, so I remember in 1997 when I started in the industry, the popular calibers at the time, starting with the smallest, and that was one of the first guns I built, was a 257 Weatherby. And then from there, the 7 mag and the 300 Win Mag. So, when I was back in the day behind the desk taking sales calls kind of in the custom gun industry, the higher end guns, that's what guys were interested in. And then shortly thereafter, Lazzaroni became very popular. Do you guys remember those calibers?
Mm-hmm.
Were they still going when you came over at Christensen in 2009? So, the Lazzaronis, and if you guys remember, the Lazzaroni was all about speed. They had the Scramjet, the Warbird, the Firebird, all those different calibers, and kind of their quest was lighter bullets trying to hit that 4,000 feet per second mark. And so that was the calibers then that I recall guys were way into. And, 500 yards, even with those calibers, 500 to 600 yards was a long shot back then, 23 years ago. Guys still consider that a long shot today, and certainly it is. But so where have you seen it evolve? What do you think, Ammon? What are we into now?
Yeah, so it was before I was in the industry, but I remember my dad and my grandpa building like Wildcat 6.5 378 Wolf, same type of deal, trying to get the highest velocity they could get. And a lot of that, I think, some of the mindset of the past was trying to flatten out your maximum point blank range, or the maximum range that you can still hold center on the target and hit it.
Yep.
And so I think in years past, where we didn't really have any of the huge advancements in rangefinders and commercially available technology to help aid the shooter in ranging, a lot of that was made up for by cartridge and getting a flatter trajectory. So, you mentioned 500 yards used to be a long shot, and that's basically where most cartridges, even with an extended zero, your maximum point blank range really starts to fall off. So,
and it's interesting today. I mean, still 300 Win Mag, 7 mag, still very popular calibers. But back then, if you guys recall, you may be too young, but 150, 165 grain bullets was what guys were wanting to shoot from. Once again, trying to get a little faster. So nowadays, what do you see in those calibers, Courtney?
Oh, heck, 7 mag, you got guys pushing 180s.
Even up to the 195s.
Mm-hmm. Out of that 284 barrel.
Yeah.
300 Win Mags, 200 grain now. ELDX has, I think, some 212s. They're even going up beyond that, and that 300, in a 30 cal, depending on what caliber, but the 300 Win Mag is going to be right around in there.
Yep, absolutely. And so, that's where that has changed with two of the same calibers, from the light bullets now to the heavy bullets, and then we're seeing. Oh man, we're seeing so many calibers out now.
Yeah.
Just in the 30 cal, you almost have to take a half hour to sit and name them all.
Oh, there's so many.
It's a crowded space, and that's why when the 300, the 300 Win, the good old 300 Rum, and now the 300 PRC, and I was wondering how the 300 PRC was going to be accepted because that space is so crowded, but it's geared to shoot those heavy bullets with the high BC, and people are jumping on it, and man, it's accurate. That's when the 6.5 PRC came out. Ammon, did you think, man? What were your thoughts?
It was definitely, it's a step down from the 26 Nosler and a step up from the 6.5 Creedmoor, and I thought there would be a niche for that area. There's a lot of Wildcats. 6.5. 300 short mag, there's, your 6.5 SOM, things like that, but there wasn't really a widely available commercial cartridge in that 6.5 short action Magnum type cartridge. So I thought there would be a niche, but it's definitely taken off. I mean, the hunting community is really starting to see the advantages of being able to keep that round in a shorter action and get a little bit more velocity, a little better terminal performance on game, and still have a really mild recoiling rifle that
absolutely
gets the job done.
Yeah, and we'll talk detail when we have Jason Hornady on next episode about those calibers. But, you know, the Creedmoor was just going so crazy. So I'm thinking to myself, and I talked to Neil Davies over there at Hornady, and I'm just thinking, why would you guys... I thought to myself, this is going to kill. And I said to him, this is going to kill the Creedmoor. Why would you do that? Because we are selling Creedmoors hand over fist. And there's still a place for both, but it definitely has... it is taking a lot of 6.5 Creedmoor sales. We've seen a big shift from the Creedmoor to the 6.5 PRC. And the big thing that I remember Neil talk when I had that first conversation with him, he said, man, we're getting, you know, a lot more speed, a couple hundred feet per second faster. And he says, John, you're going to be surprised. It's just as accurate. And I thought, man, if that's the case, because the 6.5 284, great caliber, but it can be finicky. As we have hand-loaded and built several guns in that caliber, it's not one you can just feed anything through and it's going to shoot. And there's not very much factory ammo available for it. So what would you say? Would you say it's a pretty accurate cartridge from what you've seen?
Yep, that definitely. Especially with the Hornady factory ammunition. I mean, they 143s and 147 ELDMs are shooting awesome out of those 6.5 PRCs. So
yeah.
It's been awesome
I've been
cartridge.
really impressed. I mean, half-inch group guarantee with our guns and Hornady's factory ammo in that 140 ELD or the 143 ELDX or the 147 ELD. We can get half-inch with every gun. I don't think we've rebarreled one 6.5 PRC. In this business, you know, we have to rebarrel a gun now and then. They just won't shoot. You get bad barrels. It's part of the business. Just like with anything, once in a while you'll get a bad product. But the 6.5 PRC, so far we have not rebarreled a gun. It's just a tack driver. So we love that caliber. Definitely one to consider. And then, you know, just going back on how this business has evolved in the past 23 years. Gosh, I remember the bullets back then. Can you recall? I mean, even when you were there, Courtney, was what was the bullet of choice? Do you recall? I got that rolled down on my notes. Absolutely, the old Swift Sirocco's, and even the Barnes bullets. We call them the Smurf bullets. Do you remember the Smurf bullets?
Mm-hmm. Blue Barnes.
Barnes sprayed a blue coating on their bullets, supposedly to get them a little faster, to coat the barrel. You didn't have to clean them as much. All those different philosophies behind the old Smurf bullet, but it's almost makes you laugh when you think about all the different things and how this industry evolves. Where do you think it's going to be in 10, 20 years? You know, who knows? We might be shooting lasers.
Yeah.
I mean,
out of guns,
like
laser beams.
It's a culmination of everything. The bullet, you know, the ammo, you name it.
But same thing, kind of like we talked in caliber some. You know, I remember the Swift Sirocco being extremely popular, and the Barnes were kind of the two bullets. And then back in the day, Trophy, Federal Premium had that Trophy bonded bear claw. I think it's lost quite a bit of sizzle, but that was a good bullet and very popular. But those are the three that stick out in my mind. And then once again, lighter. They were lighter configurations. So today, what are you seeing, bullet salmon, as you're doing your shooting and different things?
So there's definitely been an evolution in emphasis on ballistic coefficients. You know, back in the day, you know, it really wasn't that big of a deal because most people weren't trying to account for the drop, so the ballistic coefficient really didn't matter. It was just the muzzle velocity, you know. And now it's a big difference. People started catching on, you know, that a moderate velocity, high ballistic coefficient bullet would catch or surpass a high velocity, low BC bullet. You know, 600, 700, 800 yards, you're starting to surpass not only wind deflection, but also your energy in foot-pounds. So for hunters, you know, that's a big deal. The more energy you can deliver onto an animal's vitals, the faster and more humane and ethical the kill is going to be. So, I mean, it's been huge on this ballistic coefficient advancement and emphasis on that. And, you know, just about every company now has their higher end ballistic coefficient bullets, you know, Nosler, Hornady, Berger, all these. So
absolutely. Yep. Higher BCs, thinner jack. To get to the higher BCs, you got to have a thinner jacket bullet. And that is, it's been a big craze. It's still big. But one thing, you know, I tell, just being on the phone, and I'm still on the phone today. I mean, people are surprised when they call into Fierce and I answer the phone, but you know, the sales guys might be busy, and I like talking to the customer, and I'm a sales guy. And the thing I tell all my sales guys, and it's just a sales characteristic you got to have, is you got to qualify your buyer. You know, there's so many gun companies out there today that everything they sell and anything they sell is based on a 1,000-yard shooter. Well, that's not always our guy. There's guys that call in that, you know, when we qualify them, what do you want to do? What are you hunting? How far do you want to shoot? You know, yes, it has changed. You know, in 1997, you never asked those questions because a 300 to 500-yard shot was about all the guy would do. But nowadays, most guys want to shoot to 1,000 yards. Even if they're never going to do it, they want to have the gun and the equipment that will do it. Would you agree, Courtney?
100%. Yeah, the capability of, I mean, we talk to guys every day, you know, almost all day, that, you know, even they say, well, you know, 1,000-yard turret's gonna be good. Like, I'd like that on the gun. Not saying that I'll ever shoot anything, you know, at that. So yeah, I mean, everyone wants the capability of it. So for sure.
Just got off the phone just for this meeting, obviously with a gentleman. I say obviously because the guys here heard me talking to him, but you know, a guy from New Jersey, wanting a 300 PRC. Is he going to shoot it much in New Jersey? No, but he hopes to draw a tag out here in the West someday and wants to have the biggest, baddest long-range gun. So that's what we hear from a lot of our customers, but there are plenty that call in and say, hey, I'm not going to shoot over 500-600 yards. Mm-hmm. So therefore, why are we going to sell him a 1,000-yard gun / bullet / scope, et cetera, if he's never going to do it, and he doesn't really want that. So we're going to, when that happens, I'm just, you know, hey, look, you want, if your shots are going to be 100 to 400 yards, you want a good bullet that's going to stay together, and that's not always the high BC bullet. It might be an AccuBond, it might be, you know, Barnes, it might be some of the good Hornady bullets out there that are bonded. You know, the GMX or whatever it may be. But, you know, that's why I think it's very important to qualify our buyers as a company, but also as someone listening. You have to qualify what your needs are as a hunter and a shooter. If you know, and most, you know, 95% of the guys we sell guns to are hunters, and then there's a few guys that just want to get a gun to go shoot. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you as listeners, you have to, before you go drop a bunch of money on a custom gun, really what's your needs. And then, you know, whether it's us or some other manufacturer, they can help you find the perfect gun, bullet, scope for your application. Because I really don't think one size gun fits all.
Right.
And one size package fits all. But once again, the market has evolved, and 80%, I would say, of the customers that call want that gun and scope and package that they can shoot to 1,000 yards, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you look, you know, talking about that real quick, you know, different applications, bear hunting, stuff like that. I mean, some guy probably doesn't need a 1,000-yard gun to go shoot a brown bear with.
Right.
And so, you know, a 338, you know, a 375, things like that. I mean, to really stretch those out there, you know, it's not that application.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And guys will buy different guns, you know, for, you know, if you're going to Africa to hunt dangerous game, you know, 375 H&H, 375 Ruger, any of these, you know, 416. I just got back from me and my son went to Zambia this past year, and I took over a 300 PRC and a dangerous game gun, a 470 Nitro from Rosini. Had two guns, and I'll tell you what, I love shooting stuff with a double gun, but when I, halfway through the trip, I said to Gage, I said, you know what, we should have brought one gun. Mm-hmm. And what would your pick be for Africa? Because I told him we should have brought a 375 H&H. We could have shot everything. Mm-hmm. Could have killed my Cape Buffalo 3 days ago because it's trying to get within 50 yards, and we were in a big herd, and the big bulls always seem to stay out there 200 yards, and so yeah, there's different applications. Mm-hmm. Definitely, that caliber could have, Zambia, the longest shot I think we took was 175 yards, mm-hmm. under 200 yards, because it was so thick and just didn't lend itself to long range shooting or really needing any other caliber. So right. Those are definitely things you got to consider for sure. Let's see. What about optics?
Oh, that's come a long ways. I mean, it's like we were talking about. I mean, back when you started, what was your scope of choice?
Back then, we used a lot of Swarovskis with just a Plex reticle, and it seemed like you shot the hillside and hoped to see if you had an animal out there at 400 or 500 yards. You would shoot and then make sure your buddy saw where it hit, mm-hmm. so he could say, "You're high 3 feet, bring it down," or low, or wherever. That seemed to be the deal. But then one of the first reticles I remember that I had a lot of success with was Swarovski's TDS reticle. You guys remember that?
Yep, mm-hmm. I do.
That was a cool reticle. You could go on Swarovski's website and print out a little ballistic chart. Matter of fact, I remember doing a little Mythbuster video where we took my son. I had that thing so dialed in I could shoot out as far as it would go, and the lines was about 800 yards. I remember mm-hmm. in my 300 Ultra Mag, and I remember doing a little video on it saying, "Look, anyone can do this if you have your ballistic chart on your gun." And I took my son out at the time. I think he was 10 or 12, and he shot my 300 rum with a TDS reticle, mm-hmm. and was hitting targets first shot hits all the way out to 800 yards. And so it was the holdover, when you had the MOA. Was there a lot of MOAs? Do you remember?
From my memory, there was a lot of mismatched like turrets and reticles. So you'd have like a minute of angle turret if the scope had turrets, and you would have like a mil-dot reticle. Which, trying to do that math on the fly is we've come a long way since then.
You need to be a mathematician.
Yeah.
To do that.
So that TDS, did it have windage hashes too?
It did not have.
It was just a small
at
ones,
first.
Right?
I think it might have got there later, but yeah.
And then it evolved in like the BRX.
Then they went to the BRH and the BRXs and different things, and then the turrets started coming on board, and that's where it all changed.
But back then, like you said, a far shot was what, 400 or 500 yards, 500-600 yards.
Yeah, and then when I got to with my TDS turret, I remember going on my Doll sheep hunt, and this was one of my longest shots to date. I was up in the Brooks Range of Alaska. At that time, it was the longest shot I'd ever made, and my TDS reticle went up to like 765, something like that. Was my furthest hash mark on the mm-hmm. scope. And we got into this area where there was these Doll sheep, and there was 3 big rams, and they hurt us. We kicked some rocks. It was steep, and they were over in this bull. And my buddy I was with, who was also my guide, he said, "Hurry, get down." So we dropped down, got on my backpack, and he ranged it. And it was like 760, like 5, like it was out there. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm going to take this longest shot. And we had to, because he was going to go up over the hill and be gone. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. I shot, and that thing dropped like a ton of bricks, just went down, and honestly, I couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And there was a lot of celebration, but that was my longest shot with the TDS.
What power scope did that go up to?
God, that's a good question. I can't
like
remember
a 12
if
power?
It was it might have been just
like
a 12.
4 to 12?
They didn't go that high back then. 12 or maybe a 16.
Yeah.
Maybe 18.
And
I think it was 12.
At that distance too.
I
you
think it was a 4x12.
Yeah. You think of what the scopes do now compared to back then, and even
Yeah, absolutely. So the scopes have evolved. Now you're into your turrets and your great glass. There's not a scope company now that doesn't have the MOA turret on it. Mm-hmm. Is there? that you can think of?
Mm-mm.
And if there is, they're nobody, because
Right.
that's what everyone wants. And they're out of business. So the scopes have definitely changed. What about rangefinders, Ammon? What do you see in the rangefinder business? I think that's probably the biggest factor that's pushed this long range market to where it's at.
Without a doubt. I remember one of my very first rangefinders. It was the old hardware store rangefinder, and that you would be lucky to get 250 yards out of that thing on a sunny day. It was all
They're
that
about like the golf
rangefinder could do.
rangefinders today.
Yeah, exactly. And the advancement in rangefinding technology and its availability and cost to the general public is, I think, a huge driver in the ability to shoot these longer ranges. A 750-yard shot. Trying to guesstimate that range or Kentucky windage hold over that range. That would be almost, unless you'd practice that and you were on a set range, that would be a near impossible shot without a rangefinder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
For first shot.
So, I mean, without the evolution of the rangefinder, when did the first rangefinder come out?
I believe we looked it up.
Wasn't it in the early 90s?
94, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Commercial
for the first
rangefinder.
commercial rangefinder. Yeah.
And so that's when you kind of started seeing, taking these longer shots, and then you could the scope started to come along with it, and the holdover deals and all that good stuff.
So is a rangefinder first, probably? Is that what really kicked it off?
I think there's always been long range shooting, but it's been on set courses that had known distance ranges, and so I think for the general hunting public and the field use, that's definitely one of the, like I said, the first driving factors to get that where people started using that in the field, for hunting situations.
Absolutely, so. And nowadays, I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, that new Zeiss rangefinding binocular, the RF.
Yep.
I mean, we use that a lot in our shooting schools.
Yep.
And what's some of the favorite things you like about that one, Courtney?
Well, I mean, obviously it connects right to your phone nowadays. I mean, the Bluetooth capabilities, and you sync everything. I mean,
just the ease of programming is what I've been impressed with. Even when the first programmable rangefinders come out and you had to do that little chip and all that stuff, it was like, oh, what a pain. And now with everything moving over to your phone and being able to sync it from your phone to your rangefinders, it makes it easy. I mean, most people can do it.
And I think what happens too is a lot of people think they have to have the phone there in order for it to work, but that's not true. It's just syncing it, and then once it's in the binocular,
once your info's in there, it's in there. Tell you to reprogram it or adjustments or whatever you want to do.
100%. Yep.
Sure.
And so that's what's been great is you can range a target. It gives you an MOA hold. You dial your scope. It gives you a windage hold.
Yep.
If the wind's blowing. They've made a huge difference. And I'm the guy that wants less stuff in his backpack. So if I've always been that guy. I remember going on some early mountain hunts and my guide telling me you want as few things as you can have in your backpack and the least amount of weight. Why? So you can be mobile and agile and on the move and catch these critters when they take off and not be held back. And so I've always tried to hunt like that, the fewest things in my backpack. And so having the rangefinder and the binocular combined, that's just one less deal. Because you're always looking through your binos. And if you can just hit a button and there's your range, because you're not always going to have your buddy or a guide or someone at your side calling out range. Yeah. And so, and the biggest thing that drives me nuts as a hunter, and it happens to everyone, is whenever you take one less chance, you get an animal out there at long range. Every time you take your eye off him, is a chance to lose him, right? So one you find him in your binos, and you got to reach for your rangefinder, and then you got to find him again, and then in your rangefinder, usually they don't have as good a glass as the binocular rangefinder. So my biggest suggestion to those out there is get you a rangefinding binocular. It'll lead to greater success, especially at long range.
And Zeiss offers in that RF, a 10 by 42 and also a 10 by 54. So a lot bigger field of view, for those guys that want that as well.
So that's come a long ways, and just fantastic in the optics world. The scopes are better, the glass is better, power adjustments are better, and we can talk about that another time. But the more we shoot, and that's even kind of evolving already. Just in the last 5-10 years, everyone wanted the big 5x30s, the 8x32s. The bigger the power, the better. But as we know, we do these long range schools. You crank up the power on these guys. What's the problem?
Yeah, I mean, at the max magnifications, the Mirage pretty much just washes them out. I mean, if you're shooting in the middle of the day at all, your Mirage will wash you out. Also, your
field of view,
image, field of view and image. Get
your
darker.
Field of view gets so small. Yeah. We get here, at our long range schools, guys will bring their own guns, which is great, and then, they'll shoot our guns with scopes. But a lot of times they'll have these big scopes on them, and you get them down prone or in a hunting situation, and they crank up the power. They cannot find the target, and you sit there forever going, okay, well, if that was an animal, he's gone. He's gone, because he's not going to stand there for 10 minutes while you're trying to find him in your scope. So I'm even seeing today that's going away. Guys are realizing, look, hey, a good 15, 18, 20, maybe 22 power. That even might be getting a little high, but even that's evolving. The higher power magnifications I'm seeing aren't as popular anymore. And I've never really been I remember back in the day, man, the 5x30 was the craze, and I hated that scope because I hated cranking stuff up that high because I could never find it in my scope. Once you crank it up to so much magnification, you're right, Ammon. If you're in the middle of the day, your Mirage was terrible, but in low light, you lose light when you crank it up, and then you can't find stuff.
Exactly. And
so I'm already seeing that evolve to lower power scopes, and also the lower power scope you get, the easier it is to stay in your sight picture for follow-up shots. We talked about the 6.5 PRC, real light recoiling gun. Then you get a lower power scope, say like an 18 or even a 15. You can actually see impact,
right?
And that's awesome because once again, if you're out hunting by yourself, you don't need a buddy or a spotter saying, hey, where did I hit? Where do I hit? You can see where you hit.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
So what do you think that happy range is? Like an 18 to 22?
Oh, I'm sure that's debatable too. I would 18 is kind of what I mean.
That's what we're seeing from customers, too, is a lot of, like you said, 15, but mainly like around that 18 to 22 power.
And here's it sounds crazy, but so what if you have a 22 power or 25 power? Do you have to shoot it at max power if it's over 200 yards?
I can't tell you how many people I see down around 14, 15 power that are shooting, and it's like, I could see my target, and it wasn't that far out.
So it's like, but once again, where we learn the most from our customers and seeing them shoot, and where we gain experience as far as seeing what's happening out there is you'll get guys here that'll come to the school and they'll have a 25, 30 power scope, and they always have it to that. And then you'll say, well, back it off to like 18. Oh, yeah, wow, yeah. And now I can see, well, there you go. Your scope can go that far, but,
you don't
back
have
it off.
to. Yeah. You had to when you had the old TDS or the BRX. I mean, it had to be on max power in order for that reticle system to work.
Unless you have the different labels. Unless you have the the different, okay, if I'm on 18 power, it's this. And some guys do that. And some guys that do their homework.
I had 3 different stickers on my stock for my old BRX.
Yeah, and then so that's evolved quite a bit, and no doubt about it. But then the rifles, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when I worked at Christensen Arms for all those years, we were building a gun. We were just taking a Remington 700 titanium. Remember? I don't know if you guys remember when Remington had the tie, the Remington tie model out. We were buying those by the hundreds, and all we would do is take the barrel off, put the carbon barrel on, and either put, back then it was a Rimrock stock were very popular, if guys can remember back that far, or once again the Macmillans were extremely heavy back then, but Rimrock made a nice lightweight stock, and we used the heck out of those. And man, we had a gun that was six and a little over 6 pounds. And that's what we use because we were going after the lightweight guys. I mean, once again, I've always been a hunter, and I'm always going to gear my products towards the hunter, just because that's my passion and that's who we are here. Yes, we do some PRS stuff, and we love to go out back here and just shoot, and we'll usually do a little heavier gun if we're building just a gun to shoot targets. But when we go in the field, it's always been about lightweight. But back in the day, in the early 2000s, you saw a lot of those guys from up in the Wyoming area, Gray Bull Precision. What was the other one? Gray Bull Precision, of course. Best of West spawned out of that. Gunworks spawned out of that. But who was before that? Beyond Belief. Burns. Those guys, they're some of the first guys to really get into this turret stuff. But if you recall, they were promoting and pushing heavy guns. They claimed you, in order to shoot these 6, 7, 800, 1,000 yard shots, you had to have a 10, 12, even 15-pound gun for hunting.
Yep.
And I just never believed in that. I ain't chasing that market. That's not who we are. And I was always after the lightweight guys, the mountain hunters, anyone that hunts. You're gonna carry your gun. Even if you're a truck hunter, and I hear that all the time. I'm just a truck hunter. I don't care what it weighs. But guess what? Even as truck hunters, you're going to shoot something, and what happens?
You got to hike to it.
You're going to wound it. You got to hike to it, and you're going to be inevitably you're going to be walking through the woods with your gun. Yeah. And do you want a 15-pound gun? No. I don't. I never do. I never do and never will. But that was the market then. That's what they were pushing. And they said you couldn't shoot accurately with a lightweight gun, which I was always over here raising my hand. I beg to differ. Yeah. And now what has happened today?
It's come circle all the way back to lightweight rifles.
Even those guys are promoting and touting titanium actions, carbon stocks, lightweight this, lightweight that.
Yep.
And so that was kind of a myth buster. You did not have to have a 12 to 15-pound gun to shoot 1,000 yards. I can go out there right now with several guns I keep here that are 6-pound guns. With the scope, they're probably 7.5, and I can shoot real accurate out to 1,000. Am I going to win any competitions? Probably not, but I can hit a kill zone on an elk or a
Yep. Yeah, kind of like we talked about earlier. They're kind of different worlds, different tools for different jobs. And in the PRS type game, you have to see every impact and, more importantly, every miss. So having an extremely heavy rifle that you can shoot in awkward positions and be able to watch the trace and impact of the bullet. That's the difference between winning and losing, And those guns you're shooting, some stages are 10 shots in like 90 seconds. So, you're just flying through those courses. And so it's not the same as, a rifle that you might pack for a week straight before you actually get to shoot it. And
I think the biggest thing with those guns is you want them to stay still.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just for what you just said.
Yep.
In those competition guns, you want them as heavy as you can to stay still so you can spot your shots and make those corrections, just like you said. Yep. So definitely two different worlds. So that's what I've seen evolve. That's how I've seen the industry evolve over my 23 years in the business. And it's just interesting to watch. It's going to keep evolving. In 10 years, it's going to be completely different than we see it today. And it's just the way the world works. In all industries, there's always going to be a better mousetrap for sure. But right now, man, I feel like we've got some pretty great mousetraps. We've just come out with that. Our guns as they are, just the CT Edge model and that titanium action with the carbon barrel, carbon stock. It's not the rounded action, so it's not the lightest weight we can get, but I feel it's plenty light at 6.2, 6.3 pounds, depending on the caliber. And the Creedmoors, we can get them right down around 6 in the CT Edge. And just a super light gun that's just accurate.
Drives tax.
Once again, our half MOA guarantee, and now we've just introduced the new Rival.
Yep.
What do you guys think? We've been working on it for a long time, and now that it's out and have had our first one in our hands, it's how we want it. We're just starting to shoot it. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be?
I mean, I remember when we first started talking about it, and I think it was a great idea, right? But it's like you said, there's not a product in your hand. It's talks, and it looks good. And then you're kind of like, okay, like we'll see. And then we've kind of revamped the stock a little bit along the way to get it where we wanted it, the action. And once we got it, I mean, like everyone else here knows, and like I tell people on the phone, it blows my mind away. It's awesome. What's
your thoughts, Ammon? What do you think about that gun?
Honestly, I'm the most excited for the stock. I mean, like I said, on my match guns, I usually shoot like a Macmillan A5, which it's an awesome stock if you're only shooting prone or from a supported position. But I mean, trying to offhand that stock, it's just kind of bulky and cumbersome and gets in the way, and it's just not quite as comfortable. I think our new Rival stock is kind of the perfect blend of still being able to get down prone and make good shots, but also, if you have something pop up real close, you can still offhand throw it up really nice. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've integrated some awesome features. I mean, the integral bipod rail. I mean, which honestly, once you dig into it and start researching it, it's not like that's a new thing. That's been around for 15 years in different stocks and shoots and Sentinel, and a lot of different people have used that system. But now we've put it in a hunting stock, and it's phenomenal. Our palms swell with that vertical pistol grip, and just the finish and the quality at a price that's not gonna just be stupid.
It's not gonna break the bank. I mean, it's affordable.
And the great thing, it's £1.50. It's got all these key features. It's got the bipod rail in it. It's got a great limb saver AirTech recoil pad on it. It's got pillar bed. It's going to be pillar bedded. I mean, just a phenomenal. Weighs £1.50, and that's the great thing about the new Rival with the stainless steel action. It's coming in. We just weighed a 300 PRC. What was it?
6.4.
Yeah,
6.4 pounds. It just
with the steel action.
With a steel stainless. This isn't titanium.
Yeah.
So down the road when the titanium comes out, we'll have the ultimate mountain rifle.
Well, and speaking of the stock, I'm left-handed, but growing up, I've always shot a right-handed action, right? So I'm a little backwards. And that's
you are kind of a little backwards corn dog.
Corn dog, corn dogs for breakfast, frozen corn dogs, lefty shooting a right-handed action gun, so on and so forth. But the great thing about that stock is that I can shoot it left-handed. Just the design of it, the LR type stock, the no cheek piece. I mean, so anyone out there that's left-handed that's always grown up shooting a right-handed action gun, I mean, this is the
pretty much ambidextrous.
Yeah.
So that'll be good for a lot, because we do hear that from a lot of customers. So absolutely. So we're excited about it. We're excited to see how Fierce evolves as well as this industry evolves, and I think we're right there at the front, and we're putting out products to our customers that really give them the greatest bang for their buck. I mean, our new action, it's phenomenal, but we're not reinventing the wheel. Nothing, our carbon barrel, people don't realize, still to this day, we make our own carbon barrels here. The C3 carbon barrel is our technology. It's our carbon wrap or winding technology. We're putting it on the top of a hand lap match grade stainless steel barrel. And that's why we could give the half MOA accuracy. So all these things combined, and then once again with great customer service, we can give the customers what I think is by far the best rifle for their money. And in this new Rival, it just goes along with what we've already been doing.
Yep.
So exciting stuff. So I mean, I don't know what else to talk about, guys. That's any other ending thoughts in podcast number 2 from any of you? Courtney, Ammon? We've just kind of been shooting from the hip, and this one just talking. But
what are you shooting now? The 300 PRC?
Yep. 300 PRC and the 6.5 PRC.
Yeah.
And I still, there's great calibers out there. There's a lot of good calibers. 28 Nosler, as people that know me know, I've been a 300 drum guy forever.
That's what I was getting at. I mean,
yeah, and so
I
got
a 300 drum because of you. I mean,
and
that's
we'll have a conversation about the 300 drum versus some of these others, because they're still phenomenal calibers, and we still sell quite a few right now. And at this second, the 6.5 PRC and the 300 PRC, by far, I would say almost 60-70% of our sales. Yeah. And then mixed in with the 7 mags and 28 Nos. Well, 28 Nosler, I'd say, would be third. Yeah. Phenomenal long-range cartridge.
Your tried and true, your 300
wins, 300 runs.
7 mag.
Still selling Creedmoors. I mean, it's all great. But right now, the PRCs are king. And that's why podcast number 3, we're going to talk about the king of the PRCs. We're going to talk with Mr. Jason Hornady. So everyone, make sure you stay tuned and tune into the next podcast of Fierce Nation and Fierce Firearms right here. Talk to you next time.
Thank you for spending your time with the Fierce Nation. For more info on our rifles, products, or events, check out our website, www.fiercearms.com, or send us a message through any of our social media channels.